You know, when we're saying our prayer, we get to the part where thy will be done on earth as in heaven. When isn't God's will being done on earth? Certainly in the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the nature kingdom, it's always being done. It's never not being done. So the meaning of that part of the prayer really is saying, thy will be done in me, in man's will. Because it's the only place that because we have free will, we can go against the divine plan. The animal kingdom can't do that. The plant kingdom can't do that. The mineral kingdom can't do that. It's only man who has free will to go against it. Okay, so today we're again talking about cattle of Geryon, and those are the elementals created by egotism at all three levels, mental, emotional, and physical. So let's just talk about the elementals. What's an elemental? Every thought, every feeling, every intention, every idea, every motivation we have creates an elemental. Everything we see creates an elemental. Even if we don't come to notice it, you know, we maybe notice that, but we may not paying attention or actually pay attention that we're creating an elemental of that rock up there or something. But what's the proof that that creates an elemental? Well, one thing I think is a good example is sometimes in police work there's been a crime, and so they take the person who witnessed the crime and they take them and put them in hypnosis sometimes to try to bring back the memory of it. And sometimes the getaway car is way far away. Nobody could read the license plate. But in hypnosis, they will be able to sometimes come out with the license plate number that they never noticed consciously. So that proves that it's in there. And it also shows a really great thing about the mind. It's like we can use it like a magnifying glass. Now, they had to do it in subconsciousness there, but when we visualize, we can zoom in. Just like on your phone, when you zoom out on a picture or zoom in, you can do the same thing with your mind. You can go from, you know, seeing a great naturescape to just really the petal of a flower. It takes practice, but that's one of the aspects of the mind and our ability to use the mind. So when we come to elementals, we have two primary classes. And we mentioned a little bit before that when we create them, we're creating them with our emotions and our thoughts. But most people, 80% of the elementals on Earth are mostly emotional. And the thought serves the emotion, as we talked about. The others, the 20%, are the most powerful ones, and they manifest much quicker. And those are the ones that basically have a lot of thought in them and a little emotion to kind of drive the thought. So think about that. When you're creating emotion, if there's a lot of desire in it, you're creating the emotional thought desires, emotional thought form. And they call them thought forms because they take a form. And the form has a color, obviously a shape, a power, and a purpose. Every elemental has all those. So if you, maybe in a dream, you see an elemental and it's like a dark, dull red color, that's kind of a low elemental. The color denotes their quality. So you see bright, shiny ones, those are good elementals, but sometimes we see dark, shadowy ones that aren't so good. And it's our job to kind of weed out and dismiss the elementals that are negative. And you know, even if you can't see the color of the elemental of the thought form you create, you can certainly feel it. Everyone can feel them. Nobody, unless you're clairvoyant, can see them. But if you're a clairvoyant, you're going to see lots of stuff, and scary stuff, really. Some of these things are horrific, and it's God's mercy we don't see them, because they would terrify us. Some of them, they look like angels. So that's why we classify them in these two things. Human in nature angels and human in nature demons. Positive loving thoughts create angels. Negative thoughts create demons, the human in nature demons. These aren't the true demons. These are the ones human create. And in the Old Testament, you read about all these people, demon-possessed people, right? Well, those aren't the real true demons. Those are the demons humans create. And because humans create them, they can attach themselves and affect human beings. They can take a temporary possession. Some cases they take like a permanent possession, more or less. But a true demon cannot possess a person, an animal, or a plant. But they can influence you. They can influence you greatly. But only if you vibrate in harmony with them. So, for example, if you start having negative feelings about somebody, then they can come and influence you. They can't possess you, they can't force you to do anything, but they can influence you through your vibration of negativity. And this, I like to make this analogy. Everybody's seen Star Wars, and that Star Wars movie where Luke's fighting Darth Vader at the end, and there's a dark overlord above him, right? And Luke starts to get mad, and the dark overlord says, "Good, Luke, you be angry," or something. You know, he urges him to be angry, and that's just exactly what it's like. These true demons, they can influence this way. Now, as an angel is an elemental, a living elemental, an eternal living elemental of an archangel. A demon is an elemental from the fallen one. And they're not fallen angels. Everybody calls them fallen angels. There's no way for an angel to fall, because when God says, you know, let there be light, and he manifests his will, pleasure, and like I said, the archangels choose, they vibrate in harmony with, and they choose to align with that and fill their various orders. They're following the divine plan. Well, there are some spirits, and remember, God gives free will to the spirits first thing, right? So there are some spirits that they choose to rebel and not go through the archangelic idea. And the moment they refuse the divine plan, they fall. So it's not archangels. Once they go through there, an archangel can't fall. But those spirits, before they go through, they can choose by their free will not to. And they fall. Boom, 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 boom. Where do they fall? They fall not to the psychical world, not to the noetical world, not to the material world, but they fall to the etheric counterparts of these worlds. And there they can influence people. And there's 7 classes of them. And each one has a heavier veil, So there's 7 veils that come over these spirits, these dark spirits. And the worst one is the one of murder, of course. Anybody doing murder, they're being influenced by a fallen one who's from the 7th veil, who has the 7th veil.
Can you explain the veil part a little bit?
They put on shades of darkness, and some of them have stronger will to rebel, and so it covers them in a shade of darkness. But the moment they rebel and don't go through there, the Holy Spirit deprives them of their power, creative power. So fallen one can't even create a bug. They have no ability to create a bug.
They can only influence.
They can only influence people who vibrate in harmony with.
So they influence, they are in the etheric counterparts of the different worlds, of the
Correct.
3 worlds. And so they influence the etheric bodies of us, so
Sure.
the physical, the psychical, and the noetical.
Yeah. Sometimes when you feel real hatred for somebody, ooh, watch out, something's influencing that, and will empower you in that direction, because that's their job, isn't it? You know, it's obviously it's part of the divine plan that they could fall. They're not overpowering God's divine plan, but there's an allowance in there that allows them to not choose the divine plan.
So sometimes when you really struggle hard with forgiveness, do they influence that?
Oh, yeah, it could be.
For
Sure.
example, you know, somebody does me wrong or
Yeah,
something,
you
and I
can't
get,
forgive them, right.
and I will never forget it. They
Yeah.
go through that emotion.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
they're being influenced?
Well, when you start to vibrate like that, they
They
come
have
and
an
influence you.
opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. It's like flies coming around
Right.
garbage or
So,
something.
but the secret is
Yeah.
forgive.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good point, you know. What happens to these guys? I mean, what happens to these fallen ones?
That's a good question.
Origin says in the end, they will also be
Say,
brought back to heaven.
Yeah, St. Paul says that, the redemption of all things. So the way this works is, of course, the ones with the seventh veil are, takes a long time. But the one with the one or two veils, they've realized that they've made a mistake. So they stop doing that influence and they become silent. And then there's a mechanism for this. There's a certain order of archangels called the Archangel of Mercy. And when they have stopped vibrating in that way that they can be redeemed, this archangel comes around them. He puts his arms around them and he pulls them inside. And as he comes inside, it's like, that's what it says, he sees like smoke coming off. And that archangel holds them for centuries. And then when he opens his arms, an angel comes out. They've been redeemed. And of course, the seventh veil takes a while. They stop doing it. Pretty soon they get to one or two veils, and then they realize, oh, I got to be silent.
no one's
It
lost.
pretty much sounds like humans as well.
That's exactly right. That's right. So that's a good point. These fallen ones go against the divine plan. Human beings go against the divine plan. What's the difference between a human being going against the divine plan and an archangel and a demon, or not? Sorry, fallen one?
Maybe that we don't know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The others do it knowing what they're doing, but a human being is in ignorance, so they don't know. So the consequences isn't as much. They're not purposefully. I mean, some people sort of purposely, but they're doing that because they don't really understand. The fallen ones truly understood because they're spirit beings coming from a monad. Exactly right.
Do they get karma too?
Sorry?
The fallen ones, do they get karma?
They get karma in the sense that they get locked into doing it. You know, it just comes, and so they're kind of stuck doing it until after humongous periods of time they start to realize that they've gone the wrong way. And then the archangels, why they're the archangels? I mean, here the archangels control the etheric, they control the worlds. What's the deal with them? Why don't they fight them? They don't fight them. Why don't they fight them? Because it's part of the divine plan that this could happen. Because we have to be tested. So these are the testers. These are our strength trainers, really. And so the archangels tolerate them. They don't like them. They don't, you know, it's not that they hate them, but they just have to tolerate them in these etheric worlds.
When Daskalos talks about archangels, he's including all the other orders in the archangels, the seraphim,
there's
the
many
cherubim.
orders of archangels. Yeah.
So they're all archangels in his thing, because in other traditions, they have their own names.
Well, sure, there's like, well, the church describes 9 different archangelic orders. Most of the time when Daskalos is talking about the archangels, he's talking about the ones who forego their self-individuality to prefer to be a collective consciousness and come over here. So you have to be very careful. There's another thing too. You have to be very sharp on this. Daskalos, you're archangels, the archangels. That's 2 different things.
What?
He'll say the archangel and your archangel. So these are totally 2 different things. So when man first comes down, the first thing that happens when they pass through the soul, the idea, and form the soul, an archangel from one of the highest orders, the Metathronius, joins with that individual as their guardian angel. And he comes in, and he's your guardian angel in every single incarnation till you reach the point where he says, you don't need me anymore. Because by that point, you're the archangel. You've realized you're the archangel and expressing that. So at the same token, there are these other archangels, these 4 other archangels, and these are our archangels, or he calls them your archangels. And they're again also from the Metathronius. They're not from one of these other archangelic orders. They're from the Metathronius. And like they're not from the order of Michael or Raphael. They're from the Metathronius, and they accompany us too. They accompany with, just like the guardian do, in every incarnation, they're our guardian angel. I mean, they're our archangels. And the purpose of them is to serve to connect us to the real archangelic orders. So when we're doing the pyramid exercise, like Aki gave, and you walk to the right thing and you see Michael, that's your Michael. On the outside is the Michaels. So he's trying to be like a spokesperson or introductory person that leads you into the archangel. Same thing with Raphael, Gabriel.
Which this means they have a sense of self.
These, I can't really say that they do. They belong to a certain order, but with us, they know that they're, now, let me set back up. The guardian archangel is at one with us. These other archangels are attuned with us. Only the guardian angel can go in at one with. So it's one with your soul and it's one with your personality. And it knows all your mistakes, all your crimes, all your wrongdoing.
And he doesn't give up on you.
And he doesn't give up on you, he doesn't beat you up about it.
Thank God for that.
Don't get beat up
Aren't they
about it.
elementals then, the Michaels and the Raphaels that we create in our practices? Aren't they our elementals of,
At first, but those we attune to the real R's, archangels, which are again are coming from the Metastronians. So they're not from the order of Michael. They just are here with us to help us introduce them. But I mean, how many thousands of incarnations we go through before that we even become aware of that? I mean, right now, what I'm telling you, these teachings that we're telling you, these teachings Askros release, I mean, it can be counted, some thousands people know this. So this is just the tip of the spear. People here now are getting access to the very tip of the spear of this thing that's about to happen. Every incarnation Daskos had, he did this massive amount of work. Well, maybe not everyone, but when he's out to be a way shower for the people, every incarnation he does this massive amount of stuff. You can't believe the amount of material we have. I mean, it's just a massive amount of material. I mean, there's no way you could study it in a single lifetime and really get it. So the people, out of all these thousands of people, they read the book or they hear a lesson, but then, how much do they do it? There's probably, maybe thousands, but not many that really are practicing this stuff. And now the ones really doing the deeper work, it's even less. So the more you engage yourself with this, you are really the avant-garde of this knowledge coming to the earth. Dasko say, and the people that have a circle, they'd be a circle leader. If you get pretty far, and Dasko will allow them to be a circle leader. And they had, 8, 10 people come to their circle, maybe 20, and they would teach them the teachings, So it's a very small amount. And Dasko said, you think, and he's talking to the circle leaders now, that you're making a pathway for these teachings, but you don't know. You're starting the super highway to these teachings. These teachings would be taught in schools. It's going to take over. It's maybe centuries, but it's coming. We just happen to be the fortunate ones. Why are we the fortunate ones? Karma, I guess you'd say. But I mean, it's a great, great honor what's happening here. Just even hear them and consider them. So, Aki and I feel so blessed. We all are so blessed.
We all feel blessed and grateful and thankful.
yes, and thank you.
And Daskal is now still with his guardian angel, or was the level you don't need it anymore?
No, he's still in the world of existence. You don't really stop needing your guardian angels up here. But it's a totally different thing. It's not guiding him. It's helping him heal people. It's not for his edification or anything. Joe?
And the goal eventually is, even though if only a few people know it now, I guess at some point, everyone on the planet will know this stuff intimately, if that's the goal of the researchers of truth, to wake up the entire planet.
Yeah, eventually everybody comes to these realizations that there are 3 worlds of existence. We have 3 bodies, and this is how it works. We have to purify to go up. Other spiritual teachings are teaching similar things, but it's all sincere spiritual systems and religions have the truth. The question is, how far along are they? Well, obviously nobody's at the absolute truth, right? It's just a matter of how far along they are. And, they're good, like, you know, some teachings are not as advanced as this one. They're good for their people, because the people can't take the advanced teachings. You know, it's really hard. A lot of people can't reach to this level that your guys are even involved in.
Yeah.
And it's like the electricity wires, on those big high-tension electricity wires, the voltage is 440. And then we have a transformer outside our home, and it takes it down to 220. And it comes in the house, and it breaks it down to 110. Because like if we had a thing and we plugged it in at 440, right? And it's the same thing with us, because we're not ready for that. And like the other day when I said that I went into it one with St. John, it was just a little thing to give me a little experience about what I was talking about. If I went into full attunement with St. John, I would burn up, literally burn up. And this is what Daskalo says about Christ. You know, he's had gone into it like 5, 3, sometimes maybe 4 times in his life. He says because it's too powerful, it can burn you. One time he did it in an inner circle class at Christmas, and they had a candle lit, and he went into it, and the way he does it is he puts his hands up here, and Christ comes and connects the triangle. And he was in this full woman, and the light was so bright coming off, and the students were afraid to be close, and they backed off because they thought they would get shocked, right? Because it was too intense. And the candles, the heat generated in the room, the candles just started to melt. Now in the Essene temples, right, back in the old days when those priests had real powers, only a high initiate could step up those 3 steps to step on the altar. Otherwise, they would be shocked. And we hear about the Ark of the Covenant, shocking people, right? So this is real power, and we have to prepare ourselves to step higher and higher into it for that.
And what was in the ark?
What was what?
In the ark.
That's okay.
In the ark.
It was in the Ark, yeah. Nobody seems to know. Well, some people are saying it was a capacitor because the design of it with foil on the outside, foil on the inside is sort of like a capacitor. But I don't know, obviously it was etheric vitality, but I don't really know how it was charged. Daskalo's never mentioned it.
Okay.
Never mentioned it. Yeah.
Life energy. Life energy.
Life energy.
Yes,
Life energy.
innate life. But the highest one
Highest form.
on the earth. That's why it has to be protected very carefully.
So, we're all time talking about God, right? What's the gods of the ancient? Zeus, Shiva, what are they? Are they really God?
Elementals.
They're human in nature elementals. They've been created by people praying and worshiping them for long time. So a lot of people pray for something and pray on something and visualize something. They give it energy. So they're feeding these elemental gods. And they have real powers. They really can do things to help their practitioners. And they do. I've had an experience with Shiva where I won't go into it, but he really manifested. This was back when I was into Hinduism before I met Daskalo. But he manifested and knocked away some human demons that were attacking me. And it was so powerful. And they do help their practitioners. And they also, I mean, this gets started with the caveman, right? I mean, he's in a world where things are blowing up, animals are eating him. He needs protection. So by necessity, he created an elemental god to protect him. And the first ones were volcanoes, the ocean, fire, lightning, because he saw that as power. And the natives on Earth, and Native Americans, a lot of different places on Earth, the indigenous, they created a bear is the thing, because it was the most powerful thing in their world. And they prayed to it. By necessity, they prayed to it. And it helped them. It gave them comfort. And once it went on for centuries with a whole civilization praying toward Shiva. I think Shiva is probably the oldest, most continuous worshipped one ever. It made a real living elemental it's not going to be gone soon. What about Dionysus, or some elemental that was God that was created by people. People forgot about him, so they become weak. Because the people are given the power to these elemental gods. They don't know it, but they are.
Like the Egyptian gods too,
Yeah, the
they've lost their power, yeah.
yeah.
So if we created like material gods, like in money and finance and all the tension that we put on materialism?
Yeah, God said, have no other gods but me, but we did it anyway. We made money gods and gods of the educational system and everything. We kind of look at that. Maybe we don't bow down and light incense, but they are the gods today. Unfortunately. So, this is what starts conflicts between people, these elementals, the disagreement. It creates conflict between friends and family members, between communities, between nations. And these elementals are what start the wars. It's them versus us, right? It's always them versus us. And you create enough of that, and it has to precipitate out. It's almost like when a rain cloud gets saturated with water vapor, it comes out. When they create enough elementals, and this is true within your personal life, when you create the elemental strong enough, long enough, it's going to manifest something. Hopefully it's good. But if it's a negative thing, it's going to manifest some negative thing. So, there's all kinds of different group elementals, because elementals form into groups. There's certainly personal elementals, family elementals. You read in the Bible where it says, the sins of the father are passed on to the son, the next generations for 3 or 4 generations. Those are living elementals that pass from one person, like a father to a son, a mother to a daughter, and they just keep going down unless someone breaks it. And this is how you see these addictions to alcohol. The father has it, the son has it, the grandson has it, or whatever, anything. Mothers pass down, they have a certain vibration. Their kid's saturated in their elementals, and the kid either just subconsciously, naturally assumes them. They do, unless they consciously say, no, I don't want to express that. I saw a book one time called My Mother, Myself.
Mm.
You didn't even need to read the book.
I wasn't brave enough.
So Dasclos had a good story about national elementals. Now, Cyprus was a British colony, basically. They owned it. And in, what was it? At some point in time, they threw off the British and established the Cyprus Cypriot Republic. But they were made up of half Turkish Muslims and half Christian Greek. And so something happens politically, and it really ticks off the Turkish. And so the Turkish invaded in 1974. And they just start killing and pushing. Dasclos' uncle got killed with that hatchet, and they pushed him and killed him all the way to the south side. And then right in the middle of Nicosia, where Dasclos lived, finally the UN comes in and sets up a green line and keeps them apart. And every once in a while they shoot somebody back and forth or something, but pretty much it's peaceful now. But it's this duality thing. So you'd walk around in Nicosia and you'd go through this all the old Greek things and the shops and the little restaurants, and it's just lovely. And you'd walk one more block and you'd cross over the green line and you would be in this desolate part of the city, same city, but it just was degraded, poor, and super paranoid too. And they, like I did it one time, and the police followed me around in a Jeep from about 3 blocks behind me the whole time. And if you let the Turkish stamp your passport, you couldn't get back into the Greek side. When I was going through that happened to somebody, and they kicked me back out. And as I was doing this, it turned out to be a Saturday, which was the Muslim holy day. And as I'm standing in line to get back into Greece, which I can't wait to do, I noticed there's this newspaper, and it's like, British man arrested for wearing shorts on Saturday, the holy day. And I looked down, I'm like, I'm wearing shorts. So I was with Mr. Will, so I just stayed real close behind him, so they didn't know I go in. But, so the Greeks all of a sudden after this happened, they're feeling very Greek national pride. And so they started a holiday called National Day. And so they walked around the city beating drums and blowing horns, celebrating their Greek heritage, right? And Dasco said, you guys have no idea what you're doing. You're going to create a problem. Don't do this. And they did anyway. They said, what difference does it make? They can't hear us. He said, no, but they can feel the elementals created by this. Well, some months later, the Turkish started doing the same thing, creating elementals back. So these elementals, they're not nothing. They really are living entities, not beings, but entities. And they have a lifespan of their own. They have a purpose of their own. They have their own nature. And I'll tell you another one that's really bad, elemental, suspicion. When you suspect people, you cast an elemental that pushes them into doing that very thing. You don't think so. You go, well, I think that person's up to no good or something. That's actually pushing that fellow to try to do no good. It's almost like the Dark Overlord thing, you know? It's pushing you in that direction. You don't realize it, but it definitely is. One time, Dasclos's wife, I can't remember if it's some family member, and there was a young guy in the family who was married to this woman, and there was another family member that really liked the woman. She was married though, so he would go visit her. Well, the suspicious lady, well, they're having an affair, you know, they're sort of gossiping, you gotta watch them, they're bad. And so she told Dasclos's wife, Dasclos's the wife told him, and he said, she better stop it, she's gonna push them into doing that. And so it goes on and on, and all of a sudden one day, it does happen. The husband finds out, takes a knife, and goes to the cafe where this guy's drinking coffee to kill him. And so the suspicious lady who started all the trouble tells Dasclos's wife, Dasclos's wife tells him, and he says, if that guy kills him, it's gonna be her karma.
Wow.
So Dasclos runs as fast as he can to the cafe. He gets there just before the guy gets in there, and he's in the room, and the guy bursts in with this knife. He says, I'm gonna kill you, and he holds the knife. And he doesn't even notice Dasclos is there at first. And so Dasclos extended his etheric arm and just held his arm. So he couldn't lift the knife. I mean, he had it up, but he couldn't do anything. And he looks around and he sees, Stelios, let go of my arm, you're holding my arm. He said, I'm not doing anything. And so finally the guy just can't do it, and he just storms off. 2 days later, he comes to Dasclos and thanks him so much. He said, if you hadn't stopped me, I could be in jail now. I could be up for murder. So these things elementals can be very, very serious. Of course, they can be beautiful angels and do healing, you know. Even when you think, boy, I like that person, I'd like to help them. Even if you don't do anything, that sends a therapeutic elemental to that person to help them. Even if you don't know the way, even a common person, if they don't know the way, they're actually helping someone by thinking they would like to help them.
So when you say a prayer for someone you know, that's
even more powerful, because now you're consciously knowing you are sending the therapeutic elemental. And what is a prayer but a creation of an elemental, right?
right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another part of this. Is we should be paying attention to the kind of elementals we're thinking, especially about people, because we're either helping them or harming them.
They don't have to be large or detailed or anything else. It's just a prayerful thought for healing or to help them. It could be just a few words.
Now, don't you have to ask their permission to do this? And you hear that a lot. Well, you can't just heal people. You got to ask their permission. Anyone can send a healing prayer. Anyone can say a prayer or benediction. But what they're talking about there is like if a person has a heart problem, you don't have the right to go in and try to repair the valve in their heart if you knew how, unless you ask their permission. And it's very, very important to ask somebody's permission, or at least get them to cooperate with you. You know, when Dascos would create, he had a healing day once a week where people would just come up for healing. And one of the common things I saw him do was to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and this, and you need to do this and this. So he would get them involved in the healing, which made it much more likely to occur.
Does it have to be verbal, or can it be like an energetic request of whether you can do it? Does it actually have to be?
It can be just a will, you know, well, I'd like some help, you know, I mean. But if you really wanna get in there and like he did, and specifically work on arteries and things, and the nerves, you should ask their permission, but when they came to him, that's them asking his permission,
Sure.
of course. He didn't have to ask them in class or anything.
Did he ever talk about what Marquitas writes in one of the 3 books, I can't remember which one, about, you know, you were talking before about demons, and there's a story in one of those books about him actually converting a demon?
Yeah, he's like, he's working like the Archangel of Mercy, he's trying to redeem them. But there was one time when I was with him, and there was a Swiss lady who came, and she was just so weak. She was very elderly, and you could tell she came from an affluent background. And she was there for a few days, and then one day she goes away. And I'm sitting there with Dascos. He goes, "You know that Swiss lady that was here?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Her son-in-law hired a black magician to kill her so he could inherit all her money."
Oh,
She had
wow.
all the money. And she said she became weaker and weaker. And when the son-in-law came in the room, she would just be so weak she had to lay down. And so somebody finally clues her in that this is a curse and they should come to Dascos. So she comes to Dascos, asking for help. Now this black magician had put a demon on her, a little human in nature demon, to attack her and deplete her energy. And so when Dascos starts working with her, the demon, of course, recognized this guy's trying to get it off. He said, "The demon attacked me and started biting me." And he said, "I grabbed it." And I locked it down, and I said, "No." And he said he tried to change it. He tried to redeem it. So he said, "Look, you be a guardian of my flower garden here, and stop it. And so he took it off of her, gave it, repurposed it, right? Put it in his flower garden. But it didn't really work, because anytime anybody came close to the flower, it would attack them. So he said, "I had to disenergize it."
When you say disenergized, what happened to the demon?
It dissolved it.
Dissolved it, you can
Dissolved
dissolve
it. The form goes back to the cosmic consciousness, but he takes the energy out and dissolves it, yeah. So, when we create elementals, if we create them with thought, they stay under our conscious control. But if we create them with a lot of emotion, we lose control of them. And that's the big issue. We don't want the elementals we create to get out of our control, because then they become destructive. You know, I heard Dascos, the stories about even inner circle people creating an elemental that went wrong, and Dascos had to come in and intervene to stop it, right? One story was this guy wanted to create an elemental, an invisible elemental dog that protected his house. But the problem was, it just was barking at everything, barking all night and everything, and people could hear it. They really heard it. And so they started complaining, so Dascos, "Help me, I can't dissolve it." And so Dascos had to come and dissolve it. Now, this is my first time on Cyprus, and I hear about these elementals, right? You know, I knew the thought forms, I didn't know much about thought forms. I knew they existed, but I didn't really know how they work. So now I'm hearing, okay, you can create healing ones and good ones, but you can also create ones that go bad and cause problems. And so I thought, well, I better try creating one, right? I should try this technique. But I didn't want it to go wrong. So all the way back home on the plan, I was saying, what kind of elemental can I create that, even if it went wrong, it wouldn't be dangerous, it would just be something else I can stop. So it took me about 2 weeks, but I finally came up with one. It's like, well, I could stand to lose a few pounds. So I created this elemental of me looking thinner, right? But I did it wrong. I visualized people coming up and saying, you look thinner, you look thinner. And, 2 weeks later, everybody started coming up telling me, you look thinner. Even the yogi I was saying with, you look thinner. Everybody was saying with it, and I realized, well, this is kind of silly because I hadn't lost a pound. I would have been much better off if I had visualized the scale going down, right? But I didn't. I just had people tell me I was thinner, so I realized, okay, this is stupid. So I stopped doing it and totally forgot about it. I go to Cyprus about 3 months later, and I'm sitting with Daskalos, and we're talking nicely, and some Cypriot comes in, and he has some problems, so Daskalos is sitting there, and they're talking in Greek, and I don't know what they're saying, and I'm just sitting there, and Daskalos, very serious conversation, and all of a sudden, you look fatter. And I totally forgot the thing. I don't know what he's talking about. I do? Yes. And he keeps on talking more. I don't get it. So he has to say something else to kind of get me to wake up. So he's talking to me. No, definitely you look fatter. And I'm going, I'm just totally confused. And the student goes, he's joking with you. But he could see it. It was still there. It just wasn't as active. But it stays with us. It totally stays with us until we fully disenergize it.
Did he know that you had created that elemental, or did he sense?
Of course he knew.
But did you tell him, or did he just
I didn't tell him. I stopped it like 3 months before I went to him, but it was still in my aura. So he could, there's no secrets with Daskal. When you're with Daskal, they don't pretend like anything in any past life, even. So it's just his beautiful way. He's so funny and so real and such a real person. He's not like up on an altar and you can't approach him or anything. He's like your best friend. He's your buddy right here, guiding you.
Kathy says he's like a real kind, gentle grandpa.
Yeah,
And when he spoke, it was like
It's just,
all this wisdom. And,
yeah. You didn't see it until he let it out. And even then, there was so much more that you couldn't see. But yeah, that's one of my best parts of memory of being with Daskos, was he was loving you, but it wasn't, it was very human. His love for you was divine, but he was expressing it in a very human way. He'd get you to laugh, or he'd tell you a funny story, or he'd do stuff like that with you. Definitely, you look fatter.
If we created a elemental to comfort somebody as practice, maybe somebody going through a hard time, how could that go bad? Could that go bad?
To comfort somebody, it could go bad, because you must, every time you create an elemental to help somebody, you must program it, because these things are programmable, and you program it by just your intention. So you also have to give it the command, never, ever interfere with their free will. So if you did it so strong and it started interfering with their free will, that would be bad. Okay.
Can an elemental override karma?
Can the elemental override karma?
Somebody has a karmic whatever, say a disease or something, and you send an elemental to help them. Or that's a bad example because you already told us that you can't heal if there's a karmic
You
block.
can't heal until most of the person's karma is burned off and they're ready. Then you can do it. It's like the healer who can come in and do it. But once it's karma, somebody has to pay the price for that. And that's what a healer does. He takes a little bit on himself. God takes a lot of that. And then he works that out either physically or with the practices of burning karma.
so when you send a prayer elemental to somebody and you're very sincere and honest about it, and at the same time sincere and say, let thy will be done.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it. Thy will be done. So where it's not our will. Oh, I want you to heal. No, eventually it's thy will. Thank you. That's a good part to say. We always have to respect everybody's free will, especially when we don't agree with it. You know, like in children, it's like, what about that? Well, that's my child. No, it is your child, but it's a spirit soul being that happens to be in a child's body. So it's still, the law still apply. And it's best with kids, just like you just marinate them in love till they're about 7. You give them a little guidance, a little information guidance, but never overdoing it. And a lot of times the best thing to do is just say, if I were you, I would do this. That way it gives them the freedom to choose. Because if you tell them what to do, most of them, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I've got a granddaughter, ever since she was 3 years old. You could never get to her unless you gave her a choice. If you gave her a choice, then she kind of felt like maybe she was in control.
Yeah, right.
And I can tell funny stories about her.
Yeah.
Real funny. She was 3, and in our house, in the kitchen's hardwood floor, living room's carpet, Poppy's rule, Grandpa's rule, no food, no drink outside the kitchen, because it's carpet. Well, one day she goes to the carpet, she got her sippy cup, she looks at me, takes her foot, puts it on the carpet, and she's looking at me. And I go, Kathy knows this. I go, Abigail, dear, you know Poppy's rule, either come inside or we'll put sippy cup up. She looks at me and goes, last time, sweetheart, come in the kitchen. She wouldn't do it. So I get her, I put her at a little princess table, sitting in a chair, take everything away from her, and I said, until you apologize to Poppy and say you're sorry and you understand, you're gonna sit there. Question, how long did she sit there? 1 hour
Wow.
and 37 minutes.
Wow.
Finally, she says, Poppy, I got a pee-pee. I go, okay, you got a pee-pee. So I take her by the arm, I take her to the bathroom. She was able to go by herself. Go in there, I'm standing by the door. She gets done, I can hear her, she flushes, she comes out. I open the door for her, and she immediately runs into the playroom, okay, where the other kids are playing. No, Abigail, back to the princess table. So she goes back there, she sits for a little while, and she goes, Poppy, I go, Abigail, did you say, Poppy, I go, sweetheart, I don't know what you're saying until you, Poppy, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I said, you can go. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
She's always been that way, right? But,
Strong
once we
will.
learned, I learned from my daughter Stephanie, she told me, she said, Dad, you've got to give her a choice. If you give her a choice and she is deciding, then she'll accept it.
I'm always telling a story, telling you about Hilda, who was at the St. John Divine Cathedral and taught in New York City. She tells the story when she was little, sitting at the table and, okay, you didn't finish your green beans or whatever, you gotta sit here till you finish them. How long did she sit there? 8.5 hours. Finally, the mother broke down, and, okay, go.
Oh, yeah, but that just shows you how strong
Yeah.
some people's personality can be, okay? And I actually believe, and her mother believed, that she will probably be a CEO of some large company someday, because she manifested her will all, and she's smart, extremely smart.
Yeah.
I have a question. People that do healing, people, let's say around the world, that lay hands on people and heal people or pray for people, when they have permission to do that, what karma do they get from it? Because I've heard stories that when you lay hands on people to heal them, that you also get like some karmic effect of the illness they have or something from them, or a residue. So what happens to people that, want to help people that are in the healing arts? What is, let's say, a way to protect themselves, or a way that they don't get residue from whoever that they're trying to help?
Yeah. It does happen to certain people, but they're usually working as a personality. So it's their energy and they pick it up and they bring it back. But what the idea is that you're supposed to be an empty conduit,
Right.
like a hollow reed where the Holy Spirit blows
Right.
through. Then you won't get it. You can also say a prayer, of course, doing that. A lot of people have, exercises of throwing whatever they pick up off or grounding themselves in some other way. But it can happen, but the more you're connected with the Holy Spirit, the less that happens.
So is there sort of a protection that you can do, like put the white light around you, or before you start?
Egg-shaped oval white light, it reaches beyond your fingers, about 3 foot above your head, about 2 feet or your feet. And if you can learn to energize that a lot, that helps you from picking up from other people. Yeah. You'll see it's called the egg shape. If you've got this book, it's the egg shaped sphere of light. Yeah. All right.
5-pointed star is also 5-pointed star together with eggshell oval. Both works. Especially 5-pointed star is good for psychological attack, physical attack. So create both. That's good. Okay. We are living in the ocean of elementals. Would you like to relax a little bit? Is that okay? Are you ready to move on to the education? Okay, just please relax. In the morning class, I'm sorry. Thank you. In the morning class, we made visualization exercise, and now we are going to contemplate on the meaning behind the story, contemplate on the teaching behind it. And if you please remember the story, at the end, this symbolizes, or the Garian symbolizes the egotism of all our 3 bodies, right? Hercules and Hercules, and lift them up from the ground. He has mighty power on the ground, but the Hercules lift him up and using the darts stuck to his stomach, which is the connecting point of 3 bodies. And he died. Yesterday, we studied the girdle of Hippolyte, and somebody mentioned about once we try to ascend, Hippolyte first willingly to accept it, to give it to soul ego self, yield her girdle to him, to dear self, but the Hera, evil goddess, law of duality, separateness, has tried to pull us down. Many of us, all of us experience this. Once we, try to do our best and reach to the self-realization, so many obstacles happen from inward or from outside. But this is already planned. It should be so, because for us to know what is good and what is evil, and overcome and balance and go beyond it. So it's already in the divine plan. It's planned. So please don't worry about all kind of struggle and hardships. It's necessary. It's necessarily happening. And in this labor, the 10th labor, the reason why giant monster, we have to lift him up from the ground, means we have to detach our egotism from earth element. Because our life is always focusing on earthly things, earthly desire, earthly purpose, whatever. This is all elementals. But when we try to kill this kind of earthly elementals, we can't cope with our elementals, with our own elementals. We have to detach this monster, which is the egotism in ourselves, detach. And as long as the monster is touching you, standing on the ground, constantly.
Feeding.
Yes, that's right. So the point is we have to lift him up, which means we have to use right thinking and reason. This is the only way which we can kill this kind of strong, giant egotism which is in us. So this is the final work. So that's why Hercules met lots of giants in many places, right? There are many different type of egotism which we have to cope with, but all of them are attaching to earthly purpose. You know, whatever, dream or manifesting something, but please introspect well. If it's really going toward the spiritual purpose or satisfying earthly, satisfaction, this is a big, introspection. And considering on that, let's contemplate on the meditation. And let's contemplate on the exercise. And I need to tell one more thing. Really, this work, this kind of final work in this dimension, teaching really hit sweet but very painful point. But it's subtle, so please catch it when I say the word. Please contemplate well, adapting the word to yourself. Ready? Okay. Please close your eyes. Now it is time for contemplation. Peacefully reviewing the whole story of part 1 from the perspective of your real self, Hercules. Let's contemplate on the teaching behind it. The monster Geryon, who has 3 heads, 3 bodies, symbolizes the egoism of your present-day personality in the 3 bodies, in the 3 worlds. His first head is in the noetical world. The second head is in the psychical world. And the third head is in the material world. It is dominating your 3 bodies, the noetical, psychical, and the material body. The cattle, which Geryon owns, symbolize the elementals you create by misusing the substance of mind. Your egoism drives you to think, feel, and behave like a monster, and cause troubles to whoever comes close to you. It hurts them or even destroys them. But the important point, what you really need to pay attention and work in this labor is your egoism is creating and controlling not only the negative elementals, but also the positive, good elementals. Of course, your egoism never say, I am the egoism, and supervising all elementals, good or bad. So, without your noticing, the good elementals are oppressed by your egotism and are abused in a stupid way under its control. For example, someone who you know needs your help, and you have the ability and the will to do something good to help that person. But the egoism of your present-day personality whispers this way. Oh, but this person offended me before. And you don't help the person, although you have a kind heart and know what to do to help that person. This is your gearing. Your egoism solely works on this labor. This hidden but huge egoism limits you to express your positive, good elementals freely and disturbs the final ascension. So your real self, the hero Hercules, has to kill this giant monster in your present-day personality and set all the elementals free and put them under your control of your real self. So that all your elementals will be used by your real self with wisdom, love, and power to serve for the divine plan. You, Hercules, fought with the monster in the three worlds and conquered all three worlds. But the monster was unbelievably powerful when his feet were touching on the ground, the earth element. So Hercules raised him up from the ground, cutting off his power in order to kill him. Which means that you can't fight with your egoism by using the laws of the material world. But by using the materialistic point of view, you will only support your egoism. And it makes it worse. But by using the point of view from the higher state, you will be able to de-energize and kill your egoism. Otherwise, you will never be able to terminate your egoism only by using reason from the noetic state beyond the three worlds, you can kill the egoism in your three bodies, the three-headed monster in you. With reason, your real self completely exterminate the egoism in your three bodies. Decide to listen to wise inner voice as a spirit soul self. Then you will make it. And once you're finished this labor, you have reached self-realization. All authority in heaven and on earth will be given to you. Master all your three bodies, which means all the three worlds are open to you. And you will eventually be able to live in there self-consciously and self-super-consciously. Now you have completed the 10th labor. Slowly feel your material body and come back to your environment again. In the next session, I will talk about more on the mechanism, how to cope with it in detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's come back at 4:15 and let's complete today's work.
Okay.